All right, hello everyone. Today I'm just going to give you a very quick breakdown of this cool project I did, inspired by the pandemic and the recent course I did on epidemiology, which is like the study of diseases and disease progression and transmission around the world. So this kind of happened by accident. This project was an extension of work I'm doing on Bigen version 10. Bigen is my generative modeling and or parametric design add-on. I've been working with a friend on like above surface point distribution logic, and while we were playing around with things, I had a bit of a revelation. I was looking at points changing and kind of like, scattering and redistributing over a space. And I thought, doesn't this look a little bit like viral envelope proteins? Like kind of clustering and sticking out? You've probably seen representations of what coronavirus looks like. It has the spike protein that binds to ACE2 receptors. And it kind of has this almost kind of lumpy cloud-like look to it, scattering around. This wasn't the only recent experiment as well, because as you can see here, while working on this point logic, I kind of played around with the geometry of an instance object, and I thought, hey, this accident looks pretty cool. So having like meteor-like shapes made me think, okay, what if I put like Earth topography on the sphere? So I did that. I got it from NASA. There's resources available online. You can get them from NASA. Just type in like NASA topography on Google. Then I applied one of the depth maps to the sphere, used it as a bump input. So we've got that here. They've got the elevation bump input and also for displacement. So that's what gets it to project out of the kind of sphere surface. You can obviously control the strength, and it depends on your subdivision resolution. So the more geometry you have, obviously the more it will come out. In terms of lighting, this is lighting from my Afterglow add-on, Studio Cage 1, if you want to recreate it. But we're only using the upper and right lights. The floor one is disabled, but I can actually swap this back. So this is more like the original lighting pattern. And as a matter of personal preference, you might actually prefer this. It's all just stylistic difference. Both options are perfectly valid. But I moved the right light to the left slightly and made it a bit more red. So again, Afterglow is my resource for lighting in Blender using emissive light sources. So that's mesh-based or shader-based lighting rather than point lights. It's quite a large resource. I highly recommend it. It had quite a big update recently. But another thing I did was I actually put like some crossing planes in front of the upper light. So we get a bit of an interesting reflection change in the small spheres here. And the actual material for these spheres is using the sheen value as well to get a little bit of like purple around the edge of them, just so they're not completely red. They get like a little bit of a tint on the edge, a little bit Fresnel. And I originally rendered it as a social based square object. By the way, if you're wondering how I can swap between different resolutions on the fly, I am using the camera resolution add-on. What's it called? Per camera resolution. I think this should just be default in Blender, by the way. It's amazing. So every camera you swap between, it will automatically change to its unique kind of like resolution settings. Really handy. I love that. But I've rendered out a 4K version that I'm also using as my desktop background now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this file available to my patrons. So this is only for patrons on the $5 tier and above. And I'll probably put the 4K background on there as well. Speaking about patrons are paying for developments into free projects like the Bigen add-on. However, I am grossly over time. And I'm going to be doing a thing where when I reach major milestones like Bigen version 10 being ready to get into people's hands, I won't release the add-on. You can see the background there until the Patreon wage catches up to that overtime. So basically, we're about 3 months behind now already, and that time is ongoing because I'm owed about like £600 worth, I think, for the time spent so far. So if Bigen version 10 was available now, I would wait 3 months until making it public. However, I will make it available to patrons on the $5 tier and above. But it's not there yet, but I'm just letting you know that's the policy I'm doing to protect my time investments into free projects. When those milestones become ready, they will be available to the $5 tier patrons first. However, if people come together and increase the Patreon wage, then it'll become publicly available much faster. But again, in terms of Bigen, we'll talk more about what Bigen version 10 actually is and the logic it provides further down the line. So what else can I say about this? Let's talk philosophically while making this. I didn't just make it because it looks cool. Like I said, I've done an epidemiology course recently. So when sharing this artwork, I gave it a name on social media, and that name is Omicron 1 minus 1 over RO by 100. So what that means is this is like the critical immunity / herd immunity threshold. It's basically the proportion of people that need to be made immune to a virus or any other transmittable disease for it to kind of stop reproducing. RO represents the basic reproduction rate, which effectively means if there's like one person in a room, how many other people will become infected by them. And that will vary depending on the transmissibility of the virus and different variants of the virus as well. However, that does not take into consideration things like how susceptible people are based on genetic factors or whether they've been vaccinated or stuff like that. There's a different value, RE, which means the effective reproduction rate, which does take into consideration more of those variables. But basically, it's not just like random numbers. Like I said, this reminded me of an envelope virus structure, which is what coronavirus is. Omicron seems to be the most transmissible version of coronavirus. So that's what the naming convention is for, and that's why it's called that. So effectively, the world has become the virus. Okay, I know every time I do videos, someone complains about not showing nodes. So here are the nodes for the world. You'll notice 2 node groups here. There's lines, X, and rain. Those are from the procedural patterns pack. This is actually made by Charon, this rain one. And that's what these little drops are for here. They're actually quite hard to see, but they are like present on the surface. You could just substitute these for like any generated noise texture, get any effect you like. And then down here we have the depth map from NASA. In terms of the point distribution effect, we are currently like making nodes. These are already out of date, but Biogen version 10 requires like a logic library for the things I want to achieve. So what we're looking at here are just like early things for very simple above surface point distribution. But again, I'll show more about that over time. So yeah, like I said, this file and a 4K desktop background will be available on the Patreon for $5 tier members and above. For the rest of you, please thank our dear patrons for their contributions, because work on the free add-ons is finally underway after so much time. So if you made it this far through the video, please put either a world-related emoji or a microbe-related emoji in the comments. Stay safe, everyone, and I will see you next time.